Hi, my name is Andrew Mims. I am the Director of Operations at Wellspring. I have been on staff for about 3 years, but I have been attending the church for about 10.
Hi, my name's Alyssa. I'm Andrew's wife. I've been going to church at Wellspring for about 3.5 years now. I actually started going to the singles community group back 3 years ago, and that's where I met Andrew. After we got married, what was it? Four months later, we found out I was pregnant, and with our first daughter, Haven. She's 2 now.
At the beginning of the year, we had kind of started talking about, having another child.
Yeah.
We wanted them to be close in age, and we just, we started talking about the beginning of the year. Well, we didn't think it would happen quite that quickly, but we got pregnant in
April
of 2020.
Yeah.
And again, COVID and everything was already, known. It was a thing. And like I said, I think we were nervous about that, but nobody knew it was going to last as long as it did.
After we got pregnant with Caleb, we had just found out that, the pandemic was starting. And Haven had just turned 1, and we couldn't celebrate her first birthday because of the pandemic, and everything was shutting down.
For the first month or two of her being pregnant, I couldn't even go to any doctor's appointments with her. And that was, sad for me. I wanted to be there, but also, frustrating for us because it's already tumultuous enough. And then you throw in, you can't even be there to, hear the baby's heartbeat for the first time or anything. Yeah. And it was tough. But I think all of that really kind of set off this chain of events that we didn't even know was coming. But one of the first concerns we had during this pregnancy came about a month in. Alyssa started experiencing some bleeding, and she went in to get that checked. And it turns out she essentially had a type of hemorrhage that forms in between the placenta and the uterus. And so we were beside ourselves with, what does this mean? And there's nothing they can really do about it. You kind of have to just wait and see what happens. And it took, a couple months for that to kind of resolve itself. But thankfully it did. It just went away one day.
Yeah.
And that was the first, we were like, wow, this is great. Like, we got through this. That's, this is going to be the biggest challenge we're going to face. And man, God came through and it happened. And little did we know it was going to be quite an eventful time.
After that subsided and we got over that, I think it was my 20-week ultrasound appointment. They said the baby was great and everything looked awesome, but they noticed that there was a large cyst on my right ovary. And I wasn't too concerned about it until the doctor told me that it was 13 centimeters and I was going to have to go to a high-risk doctor.
A cyst on an ovary during pregnancy isn't really uncommon from what the doctors told us. The concerning thing about this one is not only was it 13 centimeters, which is about the size of a grapefruit, but it had actually tripled in size. They actually saw it several weeks before that, but again, it was small, not a concern, but it tripled in size in like a matter of weeks.
I was seeing a high-risk doctor, my regular OBGYN, and then they also sent me to MUSC for the doctors up there as well. So I was just going through doctor after doctor after doctor, hearing different opinions about what to do about the cyst and what my the birth of Caleb was going to look like.
So Alyssa, again, having to go by herself, goes to see the high-risk specialist, OBGYN. And I remember that day very clearly. She called me as soon as she left, and she's just in tears. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like, what did he say? Whatever. And she was just almost beside herself. Like, I couldn't even understand what she was saying. It was so just emotional. And so by the time she gets home, she looks at me and says, he said it might be cancer. And as hard as that is for the person who's dealing with it to go through, it's also difficult as someone that loves them to hear that. You're like, what? Where did this come from? Like, we thought this was just some kind of cyst, they said it was normal, like, and now we're going into this cancer. Like, where did this come from? I call the doctor. His nurse picks up. She says, I'm actually going to get him to call you himself. And he actually did, which was pretty amazing. Like, most of the time, these specialists, you know, they're not going to take the time to necessarily do something like that. But I think this was the first time during this that we saw God move. And this, he calls me back himself. He talks to me for probably 30 minutes on the phone. And kind of the first piece that we got in this situation was this doctor actually took the time to tell me how I could get into appointments with her and explain to us, hey, look, this is now moving into a totally different realm. You need to be at these appointments. And he talked us through what to tell all the different doctors we were seeing and all the specialists so that I could come to appointments with her even during this time of COVID. And that was really great. And it gave us a lot of peace that at least we could be together and hear the news together and be able to process it together. And that was just a really great thing. And we were really thankful that he did that. After we talked to the high risk doctor and they explained to us that because Alyssa was past her first trimester, they could not go in and take the cyst out now. So they said the only thing we could do was wait and see what happened. If it grew dramatically, they would have to go in and do something about it now. If it stayed the same, we would just wait till the end of the pregnancy to deal with it. So we had options.
I could either try and deliver naturally. And if I did that, I would have to go back 6 weeks later and have the cyst removed. Or I could have a C-section and get the cyst removed at the same time as after they pulled the baby out, I'd get the cyst removed. But they were really worried about me doing that because they said there's just a lot of complications. Depending
on the size and the positioning of the cyst, if you go in to try to push this baby out naturally, you may end up in an emergency C-section. Yeah. And that was what they told us was probably the worst case scenario because they couldn't be prepared for it. So then there was, you know what, let's just go ahead and schedule a C-section. Well, do we do that and then go back and deal with the cyst? Do we do it all at the same time? You know, and there were so many considerations. It came down for us is what is the safest thing we can do for Alyssa and our baby? And what should we do to, you know, minimize the upsetting of our life and trying to juggle having a newborn and a 1-year-old, almost a 2-year-old at this point. And ultimately where we landed was, you know, where we believe God wanted us to be.
Yeah. So I had talked to the doctor and told them that I wanted to go through with the C-section and remove the cyst at the same time. And they, you know, seemed to be reassuring about that they could do it. And I decided to go forward with that at MUSC. One of the doctors, the doctor that was actually going to be the one to remove the cyst, was telling me about all the risks. And I think he just wanted to make sure that I knew, you know, what could possibly go wrong and to make sure that I was okay with still going forward with that. And it was scary, the risks, you know, the things that he was saying. And so I juggled and I went back and forth again about what to do. And ultimately, I just started praying every day about what to do. And I prayed to God and I said, with every ultrasound I have, I said, if you want me to have this baby naturally, just shrink the cyst a little bit. Like, just let it go down like a little bit. Just give me some sort of sign. Because they said if it gets smaller and smaller, it'd be safer to deliver naturally. And every time I would go to have a C-section or an ultrasound, the cyst was the same. It never shrunk. It never got bigger, but it never shrunk. And so that was just another reassurance from God telling me, like, it's okay to go forward with the C-section. After I got off the phone with him and we were moving forward with having that date set, I finally was like, okay, this is our plan. You know, we got a plan. We're good. I can stop worrying now. And then I get a call 2 days before my C-section. Get on the phone with my doctor and he said he was just calling me strictly just to ask me if I was sure I wanted to do this. And I didn't know how to answer that. I was really confused why he was calling me and asking me if I was sure I wanted to go through with this 2 days before I was supposed to go through with it. And he was like, I just want to remind you of all the risks. And, this isn't going to be easy. This isn't something we've ever done before. And he said, there's a chance that you could bleed out. There's a chance that you could die. There's a chance that we can't remove the cyst. And there's a chance that we're going to remove the cyst and your whole ovary. And the big scary thing with removing my whole ovary was that I could go into menopause early because I only had one ovary left. So it was just a lot of worries, and he just kind of put all those worries in my head 2 days before I was supposed to go and have this done. And so I had probably an hour conversation with my doctor that night. And I got off the phone and I was just in tears. I didn't know what to do. I said, are we not doing this? Do I need to wait? Do I need to just try and see if the baby will come naturally? I was already a little bit dilated, so I didn't know what to do. I was back at square one again, questioning if this was the right thing or not. And I remember just asking everybody, my mom, my dad, your mom and dad, you, and just asking, just somebody tell me what to do, because I can't make the decision anymore. Like, why is this all on me? Got down on my knees and I prayed. And I was like, God, just please give me clarity. Tell me what is the right thing to do. And I honestly felt in that moment, God answering me as I was praying to him, like, I already have this for you. Like, I've already been answering it. Like, you're okay. Trust me. And in that moment, I just had peace come over me, and it was just the peace that I needed to be okay when I did go to MUSC. When we got to MUSC, we had an ultrasound scheduled for one last time before I had to go to have the C-section the next day. And we were excited to see the baby one more time before giving birth. And when we got there, this was actually the first time you were able to see Caleb on the ultrasound, right? Because you hadn't been able to go to any of the other ultrasound appointments. So this was the first time you actually got to be at an ultrasound appointment with me, was the day before the C-section. And I remember asking the ultrasound tech how much Caleb weighed. And she told me that she thought he weighed 6 pounds, 14 ounces. And we both kind of looked at each other and we were like, no, that can't be right. Because he was already weighing like about that, like 3 weeks before that. And I know babies gain like their most weight at the very end. And so I was like, I don't think you're right. I was like, there's no way he's that little. They started the C-section and I heard Caleb crying, and of course I started crying, and they pulled down the curtain and I was able to see him, and they held him up to me. And the doctor who was going to be removing the cyst after was standing there too. He wasn't supposed to be there, actually. He was supposed to come in just in time to remove the cyst, but he came early, so he got to watch the baby being pulled out. And he was actually right there beside us, and he told us what was happening. He told us that Caleb's cord was wrapped around his neck twice, and that it had a huge knot in it. And when they pulled the curtain down, they showed us the knot. And he just, he was the one that had called me 2 days before that, trying to basically talk me out of, having a C-section. He was saying, how did you know? How did you know to have a C-section? Like, you stuck to your guns. You were the one who was telling me to have the C-section. And he was like, if you would not have gone through this, it could have ended really bad. He said, you would have ended up in an emergency C-section anyways, and it might not have turned out good. And all I could tell him and say was it was God, because he was the one who really gave me that peace and clarity. And it was just a really cool moment that I got to have with the doctor and you, and just a witness of God's grace and, faith through all of what we had to overcome. This whole experience taught me a huge lesson. Not everything that seems bad in your life is bad. if I didn't have that huge cyst on my ovary, I probably wouldn't have opted for a C-section, which ultimately saved our son's life. The knot in his cord was cutting off his nutrition, and if I didn't ask for an earlier C-section date, because I was having so many contractions, we may not have Caleb here today. But I know God was guiding me through the whole way. They didn't know if the cyst was cancer, but it wasn't. They didn't know if they could save my ovary, but they did. They didn't know if the plan we decided on was the right one, but it was, because it was God's plan, and his plan is perfect.
You know, Caleb comes out perfectly healthy.
6 pounds, 14 ounces, by the way.
Despite all the things that we found out later were going on with him, it is amazing that he came out that we had made the best decision we possibly could. And for me, the amazing part about that is Alyssa had clarity throughout the process. Now, yes, we went back and forth sometimes about specifics, but each and every time she would look at me and say, I have peace about this. I feel like this is the avenue that God wants us to take. And it was really, she influenced me and made me lean into that more, because I'll be honest, usually I'm the one who's a little more like, you know, man, God's got this. We don't need to worry about it. You know, God will get us through this. But in this case, I didn't know what to do. But the peace and the clarity that she had was so powerful that it came over to me, and God just said, I have this. You don't need to worry about this. And to see that come to fruition and know that if she would not have stuck with what she felt like God was telling her, that either Caleb or even Alyssa might not be sitting here today, is pretty powerful. And the Bible talks about that God gives us peace that passes all understanding. And by several accounts, we should have probably let somebody talk us out of doing things the way we did.
Yeah.
But that's not what God wanted for us. And I truly believe that he had his hand on Caleb and on Alyssa, and was just giving us that peace so that we would make the decision that led to the most amazing and unbelievable outcome.
I think it took a while after Caleb was born for it to really click in what had happened and just like the miracle of it all. But when I started telling people the story is, I think when it started clicking for me, like how it all came together and how God just really gave me the answers, and not just only the answers, but the peace to like stick with it was just something that I've never probably experienced in that level before. And just when they pulled Caleb out and, you know, it all came to a head, and it all my answers for 9 months was answered in a split second.
God wanted to do this in our lives so that the next time we go through a trial, the next time we call out to him and say, show us what to do, when he speaks, we'll have that peace. And it's funny, sometimes whenever I'm trying to get Caleb to sleep or trying to calm him down, I will sing Waymaker to him. And we all know that song. You know, it says that God is the Waymaker, the miracle worker. He's that light in the darkness. And that's exactly what he was for us in this moment. And just like the song says, the next time we go through something like this, I will be able to say, that is who you are. Mm. That is who you are, God. And I will be able to look back and say, you gave us peace when there was no reason for us to have it. You gave us clarity when it was totally unclear. And that's the thing that I think will shape our family, our marriage, and the rest of our lives, knowing that God is faithful And he truly has that peace that passes all understanding.